Welcome everybody to another episode of Market Insight with Equifirst Capital. Today I am super excited to introduce my guest. He is not only a leader in real estate in Dubai, he is the founder and CEO of FAM Properties, Mr. Firas Al Msaddi. Firas, thank you so much for
Hi,
being here.
Manan. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. What we wanted to discuss today was more than half the year is done for 2024, right? And going into the year, people had a lot of expectations on the real estate market. So let's kind of just discuss like what actually happened and what versus what we were expecting.
I mean, when you look at all the vital indicators that we maybe expected to happen in 2024, I think we've been very solid. So the number of off-plan launches is probably higher than expected even. I think we're at probably 95,000 units or something like this. I was just reading on DXP Interact the other day. Rent, which is a major indicator, is also up. You know, everyone's complaining about rent, but it's the biggest indicator of a healthy market. Maybe if rent slashed in Dubai by 50%, people now would think would be a great thing, but I think many people will lose their jobs. That means like it's a
Yeah.
so off-plan done great. The luxury market is done also great. Not as good as last year. I think last year we had a hype on the and a rally on the luxury market, and the resale continues to be solid. So yeah,
Okay.
so far so good.
Perfect. And this is what we were kind of expecting when we were getting into 2024, right? In terms
Yeah,
of off plan kind of being the
yeah,
leader. Rent's been an issue all the
yeah,
way through in terms of
yeah.
it rising. Now, what in terms of like customer behavior, have you noticed anything different? Has there been a change at all?
I think clients definitely are far more sophisticated than before with the level of transparency DXP Interact brought to the market. On public free access for everyone. Today, anyone can understand how much any property was sold or rented for in Dubai, as well as data on the statistics, whether you're talking about off-plan or you're talking about resale, or you're talking about the future supply, the expectations in terms of the units that will be delivered in Dubai or the number of launched units in Dubai. There's a lot of data in Dubai, and that drove, I would say, probably all market stakeholders to be more sophisticated in a way because the expectations of one stakeholder impacts the next one. So today when clients expect you to support your sales pitch with certain data and statistics, then you as a broker need to do your homework. So I would say it's a major disruption. It's a major evolvement for the overall real estate market when it comes to the data side of things. And apart from this, I see that there are so many new real estate developers in Dubai. Normally, when we talk about the supply of the off-plan market, normally it's driven by the major developers in Dubai. But I think this is a new trend that the major supply is driven by private developers.
Like smaller
Yeah,
independent.
many real estate developers came from outside, from all around the world to develop and to sell off-plan properties, being obviously attracted by the profit margin of the off-plan sales, and also the demand. The demand has been insane for off-plan properties in Dubai, and that's why it's the lion's share. It did better than the resale in the past year or so.
Which is kind
Um,
of interesting because for my side of the business on the mortgages, we don't look so much on the off-plan
yeah,
sales because there's very limited financing for that. So we're always
it will
more
all come to
focused.
you. Don't worry.
Eventually, it will all
I
come down.
always say that the real test for the off-plan market is when properties are handed over. The level of demand from end users is what really defines the long-lasting profitability of any project in Dubai. But just back to your question in terms of clients' behavior. So one, they became more sophisticated on the data side. Another thing, because so many new real estate developers today, then clients became now far more selective than before. And I think real estate developers have been really innovative and have been really competing towards creating more value to clients and unlock new ways to attract investors because obviously with more supply, with more competition, then clients will have more options to choose from, and that will set the bar much higher for real estate developers in Dubai.
Fair. So, in essence, when you're saying like you have a lot more smaller developers come in, and there's a lot more on offer, or even in terms of competition that a client can now look and choose from, is it essentially becoming a war of amenities, or is, because if you're looking at like a villa community versus another one, what are the um, let's say, what's the pulse of it? Is it, what are, like, does it have a golf course? Does, like, do these things add more value than just the raw construction and the build of something?
I think everything has a price to it, right? And it's all about the overarching net value the clients are getting in exchange of their money.
Okay.
So whether it's more amenities or less amenities, you could have a project with less amenities, but it's undervalued or it's underpriced, or it's slightly below market price, versus a project that has all the amenities in the world, but it's still overpriced, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, in general, prime locations have been a major parameter for investors.
Okay.
And obviously, well-priced projects is another thing. And when I say well-priced projects, then we look at the value of the amenities, even combined with the location. But I would say one of the important things is how does your product as a real estate developer compare to other products in the market? So coming up with something that is not a copy-paste, so something exists, or something that is selling almost by every other developer in Dubai, is a key for real estate developers to perform today.
Okay. So, with so many people buying off-plan properties, do you see any sort of a shift between end users buying into the market versus, you know, someone buying an off-plan and thinking like 6 months later, I'll sell it and I'll flip it and move forward?
I mean, obviously, in good markets, everyone becomes or tries to become an investor. But in general, the market is driven by real end user demand. That's why I said rents are really good in Dubai. Occupancy levels are very high today. So there's definitely very strong end user demand in Dubai. But when you have a strong end user demand, you have a very strong case for investors as well.
Yeah.
Right, especially on the mortgage side.
Yeah.
Like whether you want to buy something, mortgage, refurbish and sell and work with banks' money, or you're trying to just generate rental income. I think whenever you have a strong end user demand, you have a strong business case for investors, and more business for you.
Right. The other thing also, when you talked about off-plan, we've talked about secondary market. What about plots? Because I constantly see a growing demand
like skyrocketing.
for exactly, like there seems to be
skyrocketing.
people just saying, okay, I get it that they're developers, you know, putting out projects, but I think I can do it on my own. I can go buy a plot, you know,
Exactly, yeah.
have it built to my requirements. So, is there value in that right now?
By the way, the off-plan market is great, but not every real estate developer is doing well.
Okay.
Right? There are some real estate developers who are new to the market. They built without studying the market well, or they launched projects without studying the market well. And unfortunately, they didn't do well. I know one of the... Actually, it's a major project anyway, but it wasn't planned well, or they did not study the market well. So they were kind of disconnected. They came from abroad, and they bought a plot, a very good location. But then everything they did post that is from probably their past experience, or
Okay.
And hence they didn't sell well. But on land prices, it is easier to buy an apartment today than buying a land in Dubai, because it's literally rare to find a good land, especially if you're looking for well-priced lands in Dubai. And the main factor behind fueling land prices and demand for land is the off-plan sales. Because, you know, especially when you look at developers who have well-oiled machine in terms of, okay, get a plot, design, launch, construct,
They're far more efficient
move
in
to
doing
next.
it, yeah.
Exactly. So they have these very well-oiled machines that works really well from design to launch, design to launch, design to launch, and sell, obviously. The off-plan market is driving plot prices extremely high.
Okay.
And to put that in context, I mean, the most recent plot that was sold on the canal in Al Saf next to Al Safa Park was actually bought by the investor for 400 dirham per square foot 5-6 years ago. Today, it sold for 1,700 dirhams per square foot on GFA. This is unprecedented. This never happened before in Dubai, even pre 2009.
Wow. Okay. So it's the off plan that's kind of getting
Yeah.
people to kind of fuel into let's
If
go
there's
into the
any
land
slowdown on
and
the
then-
off-plan side,
Yeah.
you would see land prices coming down in Dubai
Okay.
in a big way, because it makes no sense at these prices for someone to buy a land, build for 3 years, and then sell ready properties.
Okay. One thing you'd mentioned before, like, developers who kind of got into the off-plan side and didn't work out, right? And at the end of the day, the point of all of this is always going to be about the customer and transparency towards a customer, right? So how does a buyer protect themselves against that? You know this stuff because you're in the market, right? Now, if I am a new buyer, I'm looking at like an off-plan property that I want to purchase. What can I do to safeguard myself from like falling for a trap?
The easiest way is to compare.
Okay.
That's it. Like if I want to say it in a way that everyone understands, compare. The same way when you go to buy a pair of shoes or a car or an airplane or a boat or a property, if you sit with 5 or 6 different service providers and you listen to them, you analyze, their approach to business, you analyze their offers and you compare these offers to each other, you'll be able to tell which one is better than the other. And in general, I mean, I invested all around the world, not just in Dubai. And I remember I was back and forth to London for 3 years until I met a knowledge partner who I could trust in terms of value system and know-how. And then I started investing. Because it's impossible for you to know the market the way someone who's doing business 7 days a week in that market. So the best way to approach it is to really identify the best knowledge partner, the best advisor who can bring offers to you. And just using your, classic human skills, if you sit with 4 or 5 people and you spend some quality time with them, asking them questions, listening to what they say, listening to what they have to say about the market, observing how they're actually presenting their offers, what kind of approach they have, are they supporting it with data, facts, do they seem to be trustworthy or not, what's their proven track record, what did they do before. So when you analyze and you talk to 4 or 5 people, you will be able to tell which one is more knowledgeable, which one seems to have more synergy with you, which one seems to know more about the area or the segment of the market you're interested in, and then you work with them, and then you look for the long term.
Okay.
These guys are in the market 7 days a week. Trust me, the deals real estate brokers get, especially experienced real estate brokers, can make a lot of profit to real estate investors. But when a real estate broker gets off-market deal or underpriced deal, that broker will only call someone who he knows, of course, and someone got the money, the appetite, but more importantly, someone who's not going to circumvent that broker.
Yeah.
So when you deal with a broker, you did the first transaction, and all the big investors that I deal with, they all value this so much because the relationship is a long-term relationship. I did one deal with a broker. At the back of this, I want that broker to bring me even a better deal in the future.
It's a symbiotic relationship, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, right? Because you both rely on each other
Yeah.
to provide the best, service. Like the client with like the ability to actually do the transaction, and the broker to bring the client the value in the proposition, right? Now, the other thing that we also had a lot going into 2024 was, and we heard this constantly, I'm sure you did as well, it's a seller's market, it's a seller's market, it's a seller's market. Is that factually true? Are we in a seller's market? And if we are, when are we looking for it to tip?
Are we talking about today?
Well,
or early 2024 because things have changed.
so
I
how have
think.
they changed?
For example, the luxury segment was like sky high and was super hot last year. It's not as hot this year. It is still a solid segment. It's there, the demand is there, but it's not as hot as last year.
And just to clarify, when you say the luxury
So I don't
segment,
think
what
that segment is still seller's
segment are you
market.
talking about?
I mean, I'm talking about branded residences, probably 7-8 million dirhams plus.
7-8 million there. So, um, would you include like say Dubai Hills, the villas part of it, or you're talking more
I mean,
like
yeah, some
Bugatti,
villas, yeah, some villas in
Bulgari sort
Dubai
of thing?
Hills.
Okay.
Maple is not luxury, but definitely if you look at
Sidras.
fairways and
Okay.
yeah, these are luxury. Even Sidra today is considered luxury somehow because some upgraded units in Sidra is selling like 20 million or something.
It's kind of. I know a lot of people who who live in Dubai Hills, and there's something that we will actually probably maybe get into later.
It's
But like,
amazing. It was selling for 5-6 million.
that's the thing.
It's
They
crazy.
bought it for three and a half,
Yeah.
and now it's valued at 7 to 8 million.
Yeah.
Now, when I look at something like this, although great from the real estate side, even from the client's perspective, I made money. Not really, but like you've built up equity in this house.
Yeah.
Fine. But if you kind of look at it from Dubai Hills, like Sidra as a product, right? It had a target market when it was launched. It has effectively outpriced its own target market, right? Because the people who bought it at three and a half, they cannot afford to buy that same house today,
Yeah.
right? So the target market to whom this house was designed for no longer exists. And it's kind of like now you're shoehorning clients into different projects because price points have changed.
But I think it's a natural course of business, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of if you look at, I don't know, even other markets. I hear in Toronto, for example, when the Chinese came and they started buying there, people can't afford anymore. You've seen also in Madrid, you know, they were trying to,
Portugal went
kick
through the same
tourists
thing,
out
yeah.
because, Portugal went through the same thing. So in Dubai Hills, I told you, like, I can't remember who said that there's an upgraded Sidra villa that was on market for 20 or 16 or 18. I can't remember exactly the number. But obviously, it's either someone knows what he's doing and they've done it amazingly, or someone doesn't know what they're doing and they just put too much money in a in
Or
a
a
property
random
that
price
has
just
a
hope.
cap
Yeah. Okay.
in the market. But normally, whenever prices boom, you will have people migrating from the center of the city to the
Yeah.
outer skirts, and whenever there's a recession or prices become more affordable in the
Go
city,
back to the core.
in the center, then people come back to the core. Yeah.
Fair.
All right, Manan. So now my turn.
Sure.
Mortgage, interest rates, inflation.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a big belief in this the conspiracy side of things and the dollar collapse and the inflation and I personally think that there's no solution for inflation. What they're doing today is they're trying to balance between, okay, we want to put the interest rate high just so we control inflation and just so we don't go into a recession,
Yeah.
right? So they're trying to keep that balance. There's no even soft landing or anything. I feel it's just like prolonging something that has no solution, literally, because it's been years and years and years since they've been printing money, so on and so forth. But let's talk now about mortgage and about Dubai and about the interest rate. First of all, tell me, how did you see, what kind of correlation you've seen in Dubai between the demand for mortgage properties, refinance, when compared to the interest rate?
So that's actually a very interesting thing because the way the real estate market has actually moved in Dubai has kind of thrown the financing economics out the window, right? And I'll tell you
So true.
what I mean by that. Because I talk to a lot of clients and we spend a lot of time talking about real estate over mortgages, right? Because clients want to kind of fact check that what their real estate agent said, does it actually
Yeah.
kind of hold true and so on. And the one thing I keep asking clients is, why are you buying this house? What's the purpose? Is it an end use house or are you looking at it as an investment? What are you doing with this? Because that changes the kind of financing or why you would want financing, right? a lot of the clients are coming back saying, I'm just done with rent. I cannot carry on paying rent. I would rather just buy
That's so
the house
interesting.
right now. And we have so many tenants
So
who are
interesting.
kind of moving over. We did a similar thing. I don't know if you remember this or not, but like right before um, the interest rates started moving up, right? In 2021, we did like we came to FAM, we did like a lot of trainings on converting tenants
Yeah.
into landlords because the writing was clear on the wall. You had dirt cheap lending, you had property prices starting to like edge up. Eventually, rent's going to catch up. So anyone who could, afford to buy a house, they should do it right then and there.
Yeah.
And a lot of agents kind of took into it, and obviously clients who kind of bought into
I said
that
that's
did
so
really
interesting twice or three times because a few days back I was on a podcast and someone asked me actually it was yesterday,
well. Okay.
and he said, "Is buying a house a liability, or it's a good move, or it's a bad investment? What is it?"
Yeah.
Because obviously many gurus worldwide they say don't buy a house, invest the money and rent. Don't.
Yeah.
And I said that's such BS because the peace of mind you get when you live in your own house and your own home, your own apartment, is like it's priceless. It will get you
100%.
to perform better in everywhere else in life.
100%. But I would come with a caveat
Yeah.
to that. And that's why my question is always, why are you buying this house? Okay? Because as an end user, your price sensitivity and your price elasticity of demand is very, very different, right? We were talking about Dubai Hills, for example, right? You have someone who bought this house for 3.5 million. Now it's worth 8 million, right? If this is your primary house, you've really not made money. You've not capitalized on any of that money
Because
you're
if
not
you're
going
gonna
to
buy
sell
something
it.
similar,
Exactly. If
yeah.
I sell it, now I'm going to have to buy another house for 8 million. So I've not really done anything. Same way, if they would have bought something for 3.5, and it's worth 1 million, you're not selling it because you're still living in it. So
But there's a
as
catch here.
yeah,
If you bought for 3 million
yeah,
and back then you had just 3 million basically, and now
Yeah.
it's 8. If you have a loan to value of, I don't know,
70% on it.
60-40 or 70-30, you just generated equity out of thin air.
you have
And you can just refinance the house, stay in the same
100%.
house, right? And maybe
100%.
reinvest the money. I'm against exposure. Maybe this is not something you want to put on the show, but I'm against anyone overly exposing themselves with
100%.
mortgage. I always say like investing in real estate is you do this because you want to secure a future for you and your family, not because you want to gamble and bring nightmares to your life. But if it's done conservatively and if people do it right,
Yeah.
you can actually create a lot of wealth out of this.
That's our ethos at Equiforce pretty much. It's like start understanding debt and not fearing it, right? Like don't over leverage, but you
Yeah.
should have a certain amount of credit exposure in
Yeah.
your portfolio, right? So to your call on like, buying a house and that piece that you get 100% if you are a end user, 100%. Your primary house, you need that peace of mind. You need to know that, hey, even if, things go south, I have a roof
Oh.
over my head. But now when you come to investors is where I kind of digress from your opinion
Yeah.
because as an investor and now everyone has access to global assets, right? So why do I need to buy a house? Why can I not go buy another asset class, right? That's where you start kind of
When you buy a
nitpicking.
house, the debate was about buying a house to live in.
Yeah.
They
to
say, no,
live in,
don't buy a
there
house
is-
to live in. Go and invest the money and just spend the rest of your life renting.
No, because then the argument is you will always because you have to live somewhere. So either you're
Yeah.
paying a mortgage or you're paying rent. Those are the two options, right? Or if you bought it
Yeah.
cash, those are your three options. So if you're talking about a primary house, a rent is an expense. You're just
Yeah.
going to constantly keep debiting, and you've built nothing.
Yeah, but you know how people think about it. They say, okay, I can pay rent 200,000, for example, and if I buy that asset,
Yeah.
it's not like a great income generating property. However, I can maybe buy somewhere else
Yeah.
and generate higher rent and then pay that rent here.
Yeah.
And every time the rent goes up here, it will go even higher there. But what I'm trying to say, the real value of you can't put a price to your peace of mind.
100%.
You know, they say if if it disturbs you mentally, if it's at the cost of your mental health, it's too expensive. And the other way around stands true too. Like if something brings peace and mental health to you and your life and your family, so you buy it. There's no price to that. So I think it's a must. In fact, anyone who can afford to buy a house, a home, where you put all the memories for you, for your wife and kids in, you should, 100%. But here's the catch also for investors, where the economics, it did go out of the window somehow as well with smart investors. In the past 2 years in Dubai, the capital gain has been so high that irrespective how much more you're paying when it comes to the interest rate, like you can easily afford that.
Yeah.
If you know that the market's grown, for example, by 30% or 25%, so what if you're paying even 10% interest rate? It's nothing.
That's exactly, because
Right.
we have that conversation on like, is this the right time to buy real estate? And then as an extension, we always get asked the question, is it the right time to borrow money? Because interest rates are high,
Yeah.
right? And the argument is always that look, what are you buying it? Why are you buying this house? If you're buying as an end use, buy it regardless of interest rate. Like I said, your price sensitivity is different. You have the ability to hold and wither through markets. If you're an investor, you're not buying this asset to give you a 5% capital gains where you're like,
Okay.
oh, I paid 5% interest, I made 5% on the
Yeah.
property. No, like the way the markets are moving, or just the view that you have on this asset, you're looking at like 20% ish, right? 15 to 20%.
If I know
still.
nothing about mortgages,
Yeah.
nothing, right? And I come to you and I say, I want to buy a property in Dubai today. I have 500,000 dirhams in my pocket. Tell me, what are the expenses, the hidden expenses, the upfront expenses, and what kind of loan to value I can get? How much more money I can get on top of the 500? What properties or communities I should look at?
Sure. The communities, I will throw it back to you because that's the real estate side. But in terms of if I have 500,000 dirhams of my own equity to put in, any property below 5 million dirhams, you can get 80% financing.
See,
So
it
the
means if
bank-
you're a real estate agent, remember, if your client asks the mortgage advisor, they will
Yes.
tell them back to the
100,
real estate broker. Sorry, I cut you on.
No,
off.
no.
Okay,
But
go on.
I actually draw the line on this, right? Like, again, between real estate and mortgages, it is a symbiotic relationship, right? And we both specialize on something. Just like, and I'm sorry to say this, I wouldn't trust a real estate agent to give mortgage advice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust.
I wouldn't trust either.
Exactly. Like, I wouldn't trust my mortgage brokers to start now giving real estate advice because they're not in the market constantly. They're not up to date. But mortgage, yes, talk about it, and
Yeah.
you should have a
You can
specialist.
keep up a discussion, but not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A general idea,
Yeah.
100%. But you should always have a specialist take care of
Yeah.
your, and especially a
So back to
house.
my question.
Yeah.
I come to you. I have 500,000 dirhams. I want to understand everything that I need to know in order for me to get a mortgage.
Okay. So if you're buying a property less than 5 million dirhams, you'll get 80% financing. So that means 20% becomes your down payment and 80% is what's financed by the bank. The people who can actually get financing is both self-employed people and salaried people. It's easier to lend to salaried
Above 5
individuals.
million?
Above 5 million, you go to a 70%.
70-30.
70-30. 30 becomes your down payment, 70 is
And that
your-
depends if it's dependent on whether it's my first or second or third property, right?
If someone's buying their first property and it's less than 5 million dirhams, the bank can finance up to 80% of the value of the property. So 20% becomes your down payment, and 80% is what the bank is coming with. So anything above 5 million for your first property is going to be 70-30 split. So 70 is financed by the bank and 30.
And what about the cost of finance?
So like the interest rate? Okay. It's an interesting time for you to be actually asking me that right now because a lot has happened this year on the interest rates, right?
Can you just walk us through the trend
Yeah.
from Jan
Sure.
to date?
Let's start with December till
Okay.
date. It would work out better. So basically, what happened was in December 2023, the Fed, Bank of England, and the ECB were very, very gung ho that we're going to start reducing rates, right? The Fed was looking at anywhere between 75 basis points to a 1% reduction within 2024. And the market was expecting that the first rate cuts would start happening in Q2 this year. and then you came into January 24. The Fed became very lukewarm in terms of its response to interest rates. They were looking at jobs in the U.S. and again, like what you said earlier, inflation. How exactly are we going to start curtailing this? So they didn't change rates at all. So till now, they have not changed rates, but they've always kept it on their agenda that we have to reduce rates. However, right now, there's an extremely high possibility that's priced into the market that in September will be the first rate cut. Now, the debate is between is it going to be 25 basis points or 50 basis points, and whether we will do 25 now and then maybe another 25 by the end of the year. Okay, when it comes to Dubai, banks are already pricing that in. So banks already started reducing their rates from like mid of this year. EBOR, which is at 5.3 levels, has already come down to like 5% levels, right? Which will kind of carry on going lower and lower depending on what the Fed does. Okay, we
And
also
if you're gonna put in a bracket from 2 in terms of interest rate, if I wanna buy a property on a mortgage today,
yeah
we're talking about August, September 2024.
yeah.
What is the bracket of the interest?
So where interest rates stand, and then let's not talk about EBOR and Fed rates, and let's
Yeah.
just talk about cost to client.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
the
yeah, yeah.
easiest thing
Yeah.
that would come through, right? So right now, if you are, let's say, a salaried individual, because rates change depending whether you're salaried, self-employed, or non-resident, right? So let's talk about a salaried individual. Right now, you're looking at between 4 to 4.4% is, let's say, the
Self-employed?
range. Self-employed, you're kind of looking at 4.3 to 5% sort of a range.
So slightly lower,
Higher,
slightly higher.
slightly higher, right? There are banks that will come in at 4.3
All right, hold on,
and
hold
so
on.
on.
So self-employed 4 to 4 point.
No, self-employed from 4.3 to 5-ish.
Yeah.
That's the range.
Okay.
Salaried is going to be between 4 and let's say 4.4 is the
right.
range. Now you get
So because they overlap a bit, it's a bit confusing. So
because
you
there are
could
some
be-
banks that kind of
Yeah.
have the self-employed segment at a lower price, right?
All right, what about foreign buyers?
So now if you're non-res, that becomes much different, right? Firstly, your LTVs are going to be at like 50 to 60%.
50 to 60, okay.
Yeah. And your rates are going to be between 5.5 to 6.5%.
And then you still need to bring like proof of income and
Yeah, you have the whole bank has their whole vetting process on how on if they will lend to you and so on, right? So different banks have different requirements, and what people don't realize is like you can borrow up to like 30-40 million dirhams as a non-resident, right? Obviously the documentation requirement becomes higher,
Yeah.
and not every bank will kind of cater to this, but the appetite is there. So if you are like a legitimate, business owner in France who is kind of looking to buy one of like the luxury houses over here, yeah, banks do have the appetite for non-residents to borrow that much. That's something that's not very commonly known. The other thing that's not very commonly known is you don't need 6 months of salary credits to get a mortgage in Dubai. You can get it with as little as 1 month of a salary credit. So if you
even
just,
from brand new, I just landed in Dubai and I have a month's
as long
salary.
exactly, so as long as you were working somewhere
Yeah.
else, like
Yeah.
say you were working in Spain.
But I guess it depends from bank to bank, right?
Yes, this is not a product that's open to all banks. This is a very restrictive sort of a product. But what it actually allows you to do is you don't have to wait a year renting, to buy a house.
Or
And-
wait, just watching prices going up.
Exactly, just getting more and more depressed while
Yeah.
watching the news every
So
day.
Manan, tell me, what is the value proposition of you as a mortgage broker or a mortgage advisor?
So the value proposition actually comes into navigating the seas, right? Because it is not a simple task to kind of get a mortgage. People tend to think that just the interest rate kind of dictates whether a mortgage is going to, or whether that you should take that mortgage or not. What we do is we actually understand and kind of deal with it as a client and all their requirements. Because it is not just the interest rates. Do you want early payments? Do you want it to be Islamic? Do you need it conventional? Should you start looking at equity release rather than secondary market mortgage, right? Should you kind of look at construction plus land finance? Like all
Early
these
settlement
things.
fees.
Exactly. So there is
Interest only.
exactly.
Bullet payments.
There is a litany
Yeah.
of things that a client actually has as requirements, which they kind of overlook and they kind of focus on like the interest rate number alone.
So if I want to put it in 2-3 lines
Sure.
for clients, it's about you understanding at a very personalized level what the client's requirements and credentials are,
Yes.
and accordingly advising them on the best solution.
Which banks will support that?
Do you
100%.
often come across cases where you feel like as you're talking to clients, they didn't even think that they could get certain benefits and they could leverage your experience and access to the market to get things that didn't even cross their mind before? They didn't know that probably that it exists before.
Sure. Yes, we do actually.
And can you give us
And
an example of that?
The best example for that is two things: equity release and rent discounting. Okay. We just recently, again, a client wanted to buy a house. He owned an existing house which still had like 500,000 dirhams left to pay to the developer. Now the client wanted to upgrade, right? And he was looking at buying a property of about 11 million dirhams. He was short on cash, the 30% that he needed. He had part of it, not all of it. And he was just constantly trying to figure out, how can I get this? And every time we spoke, he kept on saying, oh, maybe I'll talk to like my in-laws to see if I can borrow the money, or, you know, sell some investments. And
You must have
kind
a
of
nice in-law.
We've had a few of those where they're like, my
Alright.
in-laws are giving me the money to buy the
Okay.
house. Or he liquidates investments, and he's not happy
Yeah.
because the equity market was also doing extremely well. He doesn't really want to do that. And then when we start talking and start understanding where all does he hold assets, he actually owned a house in Victory Heights already, which kind of had appreciated a significant amount. So it was cheaper for him to just pay the 500,000 dirhams off to the developer, take full ownership of the property, refinance this to kind of help pay for
Release
the down payment.
equity and then-
Exactly.
okay.
The other thing that we kind of look at is rent discounting. People really, really forget that if you have a portfolio of properties, it no longer really makes sense if you're salaried or self-employed or not. We can actually just look at that portfolio of properties, see the
income.
rental that's
Yeah.
being generated, and then use that to kind of get you a mortgage as well.
Alright.
And that's kind of, it wraps itself up with equity release very well, because those are the assets that are there anyways.
Alright.
Take the equity, go buy another house.
Interesting to ask banks, because sometimes you buy assets that are overworn and it's
Yeah.
like kind of underpriced. So you know that the value of the asset in the market, say, for example, a standard finishing would cost you 25 million.
Yeah.
But if you buy it for 20, which is considered underpriced,
Yeah.
and you know you do the evaluation, more or less you would still get the evaluation of the 24 or the 25
Yeah.
million, right? But you bought it underpriced because certain internal conditions
Yeah.
that you intend to renovate and to change. But then when you do that and you want to start doing the renovation, is there anything you need to present to the bank to?
It kind of really depends on what is the renovation, but that's an interesting thing that you actually brought up, because this is a very common practice all across the world. It's called a reno market, right?
Yeah.
Renovation market. So you buy an asset which, like in Canada, it would be a house which is like 60 years old. You've bought it dirt cheap, and now you kind of renovate it with the idea to kind of offload it. Does that really happen much in Dubai?
Oh, the last 2-3 years, is like
But is it like the
And
luxury
that's-
segment that does it?
yeah. And that's, I mean, obviously, because there's a threshold for you
Yeah.
to start with renovation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't get something too basic. There's nothing to add to it because there's a cap to it. You can't
Yeah.
go and, for example, get an apartment in an international city and make it all gold plated, right?
Okay.
So yes, there's a threshold for this, like a starting point, and obviously it's been like on a crazy run in Dubai because the luxury market has been doing very well, fueled by end user demand.
Yeah.
There aren't enough luxury properties to cover the demand, and especially when we talk about 2021, 2022, even early 2023. Today it's no longer the hype that we had before because many luxury villas have been delivered to the market, and through many ambitious sellers as well. But I always say the real test of any new development, whether it's a villa or an apartment or a project, whatever it is the end user. Once it's completed, what kind of end user demand you have, because that defines how much profit you make.
Okay. On that note, for as long as I've known you, you've been, I don't want to say like an ambassador for transparency in the real estate side, but like it seems to be like a mission for you that the real estate segment needs to be far more transparent, right? For our side, it's easier because banks are governed by the central bank and there are very ardent
You have
rules
certain enough.
on transparency. Like now it has to be full disclosure, key facts have to be signed by all clients. They need to know what they're paying for anything. What's happening on the real estate side in terms of transparency and client protection?
I mean, it's far more transparent, but you need clients who are interested to actually just simply read and ask the right questions. Today, you can learn how much any property was sold or rented for in Dubai. It's a public free access on dxbinteract.com. And you have plenty of reports, periodic reports as well, on the market performance, best performing areas, lowest performing areas. You can compare.
But are there any regulatory
All these
guidelines
all the
that-
data and transactions are derived from Dubai Land Department. DXB Interact is the only standalone website that is in partnership with Dubai Land Department, the government of Dubai, and that's why you see the logo of the government there on that website. So today, as we speak, it's the only website other than the Dubai Land Department website, of course, where you can get free public access to data in Dubai.
Okay.
Data in Dubai real estate market.
So how does that work? Like,
Obviously, we still have a long way to go
yeah.
with this because having raw data is good, but what you do with this data
Analytics is where
another
the,
thing. Yes, and you need to have
money
also
is.
enough data. That's why I say trusting AI to recommend investment opportunities for you in Dubai real estate markets, like trusting a toddler, to run and to manage your financial life. There's no enough data. There's no enough historical data.
Yeah.
AI is no more than a tool that analyzes millions and millions of data points in no time and gives you the best scenario for what you're inquiring, right? But there's no enough data.
Which is interesting because
One is raw data. Another thing is data that is well segmented as well.
Which you can actually do analytics on,
Yeah.
right? Because we get asked the same because we have a lot of expats who are buying, and now in like the US, Canada, UK, you have like 15, 20-year fixed rates, whereas we don't have any such thing in Dubai. And these clients are used to kind of like long-term
The
fixed
entire
stability.
market is being built as we speak.
Exactly.
The market this year is not like the market last year. If you look at all the developments when it comes to the off-plan, the nature and the type of real estate developments post-COVID are different from pre-COVID. So many things have changed. So there's no enough data for an AI tool to come and tell you, oh, invest here or there.
Which is
Apart
inherently
from
our
this,
issue,
just something
'cause-
really important to put in context for people. Today, certain communities, when you look at the data, it is still registered as a land, but it's actually a villa. So certain communities, you have lands for villas that haven't been built yet. So it is a land as we speak today. And on other plots within the same communities, you have villas. But when you look at the data, you would see them all as lands,
Okay.
right? So imagine
not
you're trying
updated,
to
not-
analyze.
yeah.
Imagine you're trying to analyze the average price for villas in that community,
Yeah.
and obviously, when you look at data, it's actually taking all the data of transactions, including land transactions that are the bare lands that have no villas on them. Again, when you buy plots to develop a real estate project on, you buy on GFA in Dubai, right? On the gross floor area. You don't buy on the land based on the land area. But you would see transactions that tells you this particular land was sold at this much, and it only mentions the land area, not how much you can build on the land.
Yeah.
Right? So there's not enough data, there's not enough historical data, and in certain segments of the market, you don't have even clear data. You have a lot of you need a lot of human intervention in order for you to interpret the
What is
data in the
there,
right
yeah.
context.
Yeah. Because our side, it's the same thing. Because eBoard doesn't have a forward curve because we don't have enough data. It's not been long enough for us to start looking at predicting like what will it be in like
Exactly.
10 years. So that's why
Yeah.
we can't give 10-year, 15-year
Yeah.
rates. Which kind of on this data thing, do you think there is room over here for government intervention or regulatory intervention on pricing for sale?
I feel the government of Dubai, I mean, what makes the city like greater than great is the fact that it runs in a way that a private conglomerate runs, right? It's extremely client focused. It's extremely client centric. So whether you are a foreigner or a resident or you're a non-resident or you're someone passing by Dubai or you're a local, you, it's kind of open market for everyone, right? You have your rights and you have your obviously your obligations, and I feel that the government likes to keep the market open and likes to keep the competition as well open, right? And also there are a lot of lands that have been already sold, so the government won't come now to someone who bought a land and had a plan to launch a project in 3 years or in 2 years or in 5 years and say, no, now we have a new policy, don't touch your land, you have to keep it like this for some unknown period of time.
They recently changed
So-
off-plan rules as well, right? In terms of developers and their solvency, right?
With the escrow account, so the
Yeah.
threshold, you need to pay 50% of construction cost.
But if you
as a bond with
default,
the
you have to
government.
refund the money back to the client now, don't you?
Honestly, we have a very well governed off-plan market today,
Yeah.
as compared to many other mature markets in the world.
Okay.
That's what I would say about the off-plan market in Dubai.
One more thing. Now, considering what a crazy bull run it's been on the real estate side, right? And this goes with any asset class, that you always have, let's say, undervalued assets, like hidden gems where people aren't really focusing, but you know they're going to kind of edge out. Are there any right now? Are there any that you can think of?
Jabal Ali. Jabal
Land?
Ali and Palm Jabal Ali.
Like the land itself?
Lands, villas, apartments. I feel Jabal Ali is still under the radar. If you compare to prices here, for example, when you look at Palm Jabal Ali, the spread, when you compare Palm Jabal Ali villa to the same size villa on Palm Jumeirah, it's literally half price. And you go on a payment plan. It's not your ideal mortgage product.
I was going to say, or you can do a mortgage
But-
once it delivers.
Yeah, but yeah, I think there are great opportunities in Jabal Ali side.
Okay. Any other areas, or that's the one that comes to your mind as?
I
the
think in
most-
every area there's a the kind of like a price tag or an average price. Anything below that price is a great opportunity to look at.
So now we're kind of looking at, let's start talking about micro transactions rather than the macros,
Yeah.
right? Like, because what was it? Deloitte did it was Deloitte. They did a whole report. Like last year, rents in UAE went up about 28%, whereas property prices went up 18%, right? Across the board. So now it's just saying like generally, yeah, the market's looking good, but your rents are kind of
Long
way
as
out
your
there.
rents are like this,
Yeah.
you're okay.
Okay.
Because that is the best reflection of the volume of demand.
Okay.
And when you have enough demand, you'll always have a good market.
But the other side of that coin is supply, right? If I
That's why
have-
enough demand is defined by the supply, right?
Yeah. So, but that my point was going to be
Enough demand
we
to
have
cover the supply.
demand right now, and then you'd earlier mentioned that we have an influx of properties
Yeah.
coming in, right?
It will only start coming in 2026.
2026
and
is
moving
where
forward, yeah.
most of those deliveries are looking.
And the population is growing at the speed of light.
They're going to 6 million by the
Right.
end of 2026, which is a ginormous
But
task.
apart
for 4
from
mil.
the objectives set by the government, honestly, if you look at the traffic on the roads, you can just get a good sense of at what speed the population is growing at in Dubai.
You know, that's one of the things that you've kind of. This has nothing to do with real estate, but it's always interesting to see, because you keep talking about the UAE government. Like, they are so quick to respond to something, right? I find, like, when you had the floods, like how quickly they responded to, like, no, okay, developers need to start kind of compensating or
Yeah.
helping, and then even around our area, I live like in the ranches, like work started on we need to start making better infrastructure
Honestly,
for
floods,
water.
COVID, and I would say not just to address challenges, but
Yeah.
to turn these challenges into opportunities.
Yeah.
They have an extremely high level of agility, like unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm looking at roads
Honestly,
near my house.
it's
They're
like
just
the biggest
expanding.
inspiration
Yeah.
any resident in Dubai or any businessman in Dubai can possibly have. They just driving your car around Dubai and just seeing what the government has done is just it's fascinating, honestly.
Yeah. Fair. But having said that, thank you
All
so
right, sounds
much
good.
for
Thank you so much, Manan.
being here for
Thanks
us.
for
It
your
was a
time.
pleasure.
We should do this more often.
We should
I think there are
actually.
plenty of questions on the mortgage side, more at the micro level that you can help the audience understand.
Sure, 100%. For everyone watching, thank you so much for taking the time. Please like, subscribe, and share. For any questions, please reach out to Equifirst Capital Financing.